to the Texas Law Dog Podcast, where we will get you off, literally and legally.
This is a parody podcast, and all content should not be construed as formal legal advice used for educational, marketing, and solicitation purposes only. The Texas Law Dog will not get you off, literally or legally.
Good morning, Law Dog. How are you, bro?
I've been better, man. This morning, I actually revealed myself to the an entire courtroom on Zoom. So the day did not start well.
What do you like? Reveal like you flashed them?
So look, court started at 10. And it's been weird because like with Zoom, I've usually got like what I've got on now, which is a jacket, and then like I just wear shorts underneath. So I'm half legit, okay? And I need the people to know that. I'm recording this stuff somewhat comfortable. I mean, okay. But I was wearing proper attire to address the judge. I had basically arranged a deal with with the DA and the client and everything like that. So I was in the waiting room. I was not aware that when you are in the waiting room on a Zoom call that they can see you. So I learned that hard lesson today because I was about to like, I was just sitting there waiting, and then my dog threw up on me. And so I had to, I was like, fuck, I got to go change. I went and changed, where I was like in the bathroom frantically trying to like wash it off. And then I grab a polo shirt and I'm walking halfway into the office, but of course gets stuck while I'm trying to get it over my head. So I'm sitting there, and then I see the screen change, and then all of a sudden I hear the judge be like, "Counselor, we just saw you changing."
That's hilarious. Oh,
so I'm
my
like,
God.
"Oh shit." Well, Judge, I'm pretty shameless. He starts laughing. Thankfully, he's like, "Well, I've never encountered that yet on Zoom." So I got to flex on the court this morning, guys, and
it
started out well, man. It was just my top. Luckily, I had pants on. I had pants on. Fortunately. But yeah, so that started the day.
That's hilarious.
Now we're here. So
if there's one takeaway from this podcast, fucking even if you're in the waiting room, you're still on camera. Okay.
And we will get you off.
Exactly.
Mentally. And legally. I love that thing, man. That's so funny. We're just gonna be ridiculous. Like we need to just be real, and like that's why I wanted to start off the show today with something a little different, because like this is a character, right? Like what I'm doing, it's something that I created, but behind the character there is an individual, and that individual grew up kind of observing this country from a political standpoint. I was always fascinated with our country's history. Okay, so when I grew up, man, I loved studying like the history of our country and how we were founded and what the people back then believed. And it's just a hobby of mine. Like I was a big fan of history. And man, I look around today and I just see all the division and the hate and the vitriol that's been like nonstop on your news feeds and your Instagram feeds and everything like that. And I think people are sick of it. I think that people are fucking tired of it. And I think that's just because we're like the week before the election and there's obviously going to be some burnout. But if no one's going to say this, man, we need to respect each other again, or we will fall. I truly believe that. I think that if we don't listen to each other's differences with an open mind and respect for their opinions, then we're going to just march into a full-on war. And nobody wants that because we're one of the few countries where the citizens are armed, and it's a dangerous thing, man. Like when you've got all this crazy talk about like Governor Abbott sending in the National Guard, for instance, preemptively next week to handle like election day, I'm just thinking like, man, this shit's going to be terrible. Like I already know it's going to be a massive clusterfuck. Neither side is going to concede. And it just makes me take a step back, right? Because I never took a side. I always voted the candidate. Like even when I was a kid, I was fascinated, like even in '96 as a young kid with Bob Dole and Bill Clinton, like that election. I followed that stuff when I was young. Like I was atypical, obviously. Like I was just fascinated by different things than normal, like most normal kids. And so I made it a point to try and figure out what was going on, because I had done a lot of research on the founding of the country and our nation's history. I was a political science major. I took all the courses on global and our domestic governments and what we've done over the past 250 years. And, we're a young country and people forget that. And I think that we, in the global scheme, we're very young. And therefore, I think we're pretty manipulatable and impressionable, because we don't have the value of history and learning those lessons that other countries might have, and so we're dealing, but we're also, what makes us great is that we're so different from everyone else. Like we have a Bill of Rights that affords us the opportunities to do things that nobody in China would ever be able to do. The very fact that we can talk together about this and about the government is a testament to how people take for granted their rights in America. Like it's crazy. I see these woke liberals and the neocons kind of combating them. And I know that they're both typing on these devices that are made by Chinese hands, tiny little Chinese hands, slave labor. So we're all hypocrites here. Okay. If the phones were made in America, they would cost 20 grand and nobody's going to be able to afford that. And so we have become these talking points for these corporate, agendas that we see. And so when your political message is sponsored by, man, I don't know. I just don't trust it. I can't trust that those means and those ends are the actual way to fix this country. I mean, Jesus, if you wanted to fix this country, you could just do some simple things, but every single step of the way in fixing them involves making somebody less money. And so that's really what it comes down to. We got way too greedy. And we've sold out a lot. Like we can't go to war with China. How are we going to get our refrigerators? How are we going to get anything? We're too reliant on them. And that was because of what, the Clintons and the Bushes did back. Like they set this up, where we were all making more money, but it was all on credit. And so it's truly gotten to the point now where it's unsustainable. You have like half the country is not going to be able to go back to work because their jobs are going to be automated by next year. And so like, what do we do with those people? How do you care for someone that doesn't may not necessarily have a skill set that's going to be valuable in this country anymore? It's a tough question and it's a tougher answer. I don't want to fucking fix it, man. But I like looking at it from the outside in. I see a couple of solutions that we could really if people just seriously considered federal term limits, then we could limit the ability for these people that are the gatekeepers like Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi from retaining power for 30 years. I mean, we need some fresh blood in there. I understand that there are philosophical differences here in this country and how we should operate it and who should be taken care of. Will you Google for me real quick what Amazon's cash on hand was for this year?
How much they made this in revenue or what?
Like how much they have cash on hand, like profit or, whatever they have as far as cash.
In 2019 it's 55 billion. In In 2020, it was 70 billion, which is a 72% increase year over year. I can actually,
Okay,
yeah,
so
bro.
well then will you look up the total funding for U.S. education?
Total. Yeah, I mean it's about almost in around for total expenditures for public elementary and secondary schools in the United States is around 700 billion.
How much?
700.
Okay, $700 billion. How much did we spend on defense?
Yeah, funding for U.S. That's the crazy, bro. How much we spend on our military? 900 billion, over 900 billion,
And
almost a
both
trillion,
sides, I mean, look, both
almost a
sides
trillion.
always agree to fund it. And the compromise is that we continue to fund Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. And what they need to do, I mean, what the corporations won't do is take less. I mean, truly, that's all we need them to do. And insurance, for instance, is a scam. I mean, anyone that works in insurance, I have friends that do, they're going to hate me for saying this, but insurance is a fucking scam. Okay. It's a literal scam. And anyone who sells it is selling fugazi. And half the time they're going to deny your claims and you're going to have to hire a first party litigator to sue the insurance company. And I got a lot of friends that enjoy doing that, but truly they are the middleman that is keeping us crushed, especially in healthcare and everything else. I mean, think about it. The average person wakes up and they're trying to survive and just, and especially if you're born in America, you get to see everyone that's successful on a daily basis. So you have a lot of innate jealousy in people and, people that want things that they otherwise can't have. And that's a natural inclination that I found. I mean, in America, we've become less community and more like self-ingratiating, self-serving assholes. We don't help each other in a homogeneous communal way anymore. And more, for the most part, what I found is that everyone's just trying to help themselves and their own families, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I think that like the American way has been to build success on your own, and that is fine. But it's becoming harder and harder. I mean, like everyone that tries to escape a normal 8 to 5 job, look, if you don't work for a corporation here, you can't have good health insurance, you can't have vision, dental. I mean, I haven't had health insurance in 6 years. Luckily I've been healthy enough, but I do have like really bad neck and back issues that I wish I could get fixed. And unfortunately, I'm screwed because I work for myself. So it's just something that I have to sacrifice, and it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way for any small business here. But we don't want to have a public-private system because then the insurance companies can't make as much money. And that's the thing, man, is that everyone has to wake up and realize they need to take a little less and be a little less greedy if we're actually going to change. Because if we just continue to gaslight each other, I mean, it doesn't matter what side you're on. That's all I see on a constant basis is gaslighting and most science versus your science. And, you know, it's tiring, it's exhausting, and I see right through it. I mean,
And I think the reason that so for example, it's because as you were talking about earlier, the short term in the short term, negativity is always more interesting in the short term, right? So it's always easier to be negative on Instagram. When you're running ads, like hate ads are going to be like even the Joe Biden and the Trump ads, bro. I've been seeing them both on YouTube over the past couple of months.
it's just social manipulation.
Hilarious. They're funny though. They're both hilarious. Like I saw one where Trump was calling like the Joe Biden to like prevent the zombie apocalypse. Like I was like, dude, that's so funny. But
look, you've got one half of the country thinking that if Biden wins, then the Chinese are going to invade.
Right.
And then you've got the other half of the country thinking that if Trump wins, there's no way we're going to be able to survive.
And then
so
people get so caught up on their team, like they're on blue or on red, like they're not even thinking straight
it's
about
tribalism, and it's understandable because it's people want to be like they want to feel like they're a part of something. That's a natural human inclination I found on a psychological level. Like you want to have support. You want to have people that agree with you. And that is completely a natural human inclination. So like when I tell people, like when I stand up in front of a jury, I try to make them see that. I try to like get people to put themselves in each other people's shoes. Like it's crazy though with Trump, because before him, it was always more of the status quo. I honestly think 16 was supposed to be Jeb Bush versus Hillary. And I don't know if Trump's a fucking time traveler or what, man, but I knew as soon as he opened his mouth that he was going to win. And I said in July of 2015, this guy is going to win. Get ready, prepare your minds, your gentle minds, that this guy, look, what Obama did is the media never criticized him. That's someone that I read the paper every single day. And I always tried to object, like, cause I skew libertarian. I vote the candidate. At the federal level, your vote really doesn't make that much of a difference anymore. I mean, it really does at the local level, and that's why voting is important. But it's one big corporation, and it's turtles all the way down, man. Like if you don't see it, if you don't know how big money actually works, that's what creates power. And power corrupts people, man. It will get you. It will, when you have an agenda. Because like, look, Trump isn't going to ever be able to relate to a guy like me. If I met him, he'd be like, "So where'd you go? Like, did you go to Harvard?" And I'd be like, "No, I'm from the suburbs of Houston." He'd be like, "What? What are you doing here?" Like he's not the common. Like it's hilarious that he's smart. He took advantage of a lot of people. I think they're like in 10 years, people are going to look back and kick themselves in the ass for just blindly supporting him, because I think that at this point, he may either just be put in there to bring about the fall of the Republican Party or significantly alter it. And so, like, because whether at the end of the day, Republicans that were traditional, like Bush Republicans, hated Trump, the Never Trump movement, like it was just, the guy is not what did you expect? He's a reality TV star, and he he takes advantage of people. Like that's what he's done his whole life. So to me, I see it as like there's these two major crime bosses that are running for office at this point. And one represents one agenda and one represents another agenda. And I think that at the end of the day, though, they're all rich people. Like they all can't relate to the people that have never been able to not pay rent. I mean, there's no way that any of these people. Joe Biden says he grew up like in the middle class. That may be true, but like when he is in office for 50 years, he loses the ability to say that he's the common man. I mean, he's not. He's a puppet for a ton of different interests.
Yeah, I mean, and also like it's so crazy how like the with Joe Biden, for example, right? Like again, I don't skew either way. I'm independent.
Right.
I'm not pro Trump or pro Biden. But whenever you were watching the debate, it's like literally like we were watching a reality TV show, bro. Like I'm just like them two arguing at that first debate. I was like, dude, I've seen that movie. Like I think Will Ferrell was in that movie. Like it was the one with remember
what was the movie where we need?
Yeah, Will Ferrell.
What was the movie where? Yeah, I know what you're talking
happened.
about. Yes.
Yeah,
but there was another one where Robin Williams ran as a third-party candidate as a comedian, and he won.
Yeah, dude, but like where Joe Biden was like, and then mid debate, he would look into the camera and then be like, "America, that's what, dude." Like, come on, bro. Like that's.
Come on, man.
Yeah,
it's just like
you're not being authentic.
Do the people actually believe these clowns? I don't. They
like,
do.
Do you remember the movie Gladiator, where Commodus or the Emperor was just everything was going to shit, but it was cool because he would just kept the people entertained. And he was like, as long as they're entertained, that's literally what it is. It's like that's living.
It, man. But like the thing is that people are getting sick of it now. Like the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s were the time to be alive here, because that was when nobody knew any better and how fucked they were getting. Like when Reagan opened it up, in the 80s, and everybody just started making a lot of money. And then the internet hit, it's just like it was full steam ahead. So I think humanity is approaching a turning point. Like I think in 100 years, we're going to look back on ourselves and be like, wow, these youngins didn't know how the hell to deal with this technology. And I think that's what we're seeing. It's just like the denigration of society through social media. These big tech companies are completely just like the Politburo now, so they can pull your stuff if you say something that they don't agree with. And I mean, that to me violates the First Amendment. But they're powerful people, and we bought all their shit. Like, look, man, we deserve this sort of. We all use the iPhones that we know are made by Chinese slave labor, and we don't care because we want our stuff. We want our next Amazon Prime delivery. We want everything now. We want the restaurants to deliver everything to us. We don't want to have to leave. Everything's convenient. I mean, there's nothing, everything's too comfortable. Because if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's just, we're at the very top now, where everybody, even the poorest people in America, I think I said last episode, have a TV and a phone, and yet they can't pay rent. I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. Because we could just take some of these massive amounts of money that some of these tech companies are making and make them reinvested into infrastructure, education, paying our teachers so that we actually have good people that want to teach our kids. It's and we've got to and it's got to be people that are successful people that aren't like billionaires. It's got to be these reasonable, I'm talking millionaires even, because unless you have like 500 million, you're not much. And as much as crazy as that sounds, but like for real power, like that's how much money it really takes. And so these people that run like these syndicates, these nonprofits, these think tanks, these public policy centers, like everything in DC is nothing like you read about. I mean, these bills, if they all pass, these politicians don't write them anymore. They're written by think tanks. They're written by people with an agenda. And so if you don't zoom out and just realize that it's one big circus, it's gonna, like, I don't know what else to tell people. Like, you've got to turn off the news, turn off your phones, go outside. I make it a point when I walk my dogs every day, for instance, to try and speak with a stranger. I bet that sounds psychotic in 2020. But I try and meet with people. Like, I try and, like, because I'm a jury lawyer. Like, every single person I meet is a potential juror. So I need to know what's going on the ground. I understand what's going on my phone and what's on paper. That shit doesn't indicate real life when you walk outside into your neighborhood. And that's what more people need to do, is just talk to people. If you have a Trump sign, don't just assume that they're a Nazi fascist. Go and talk to them and ask them, why are you mad about this country? And then you'll probably find out that you have a lot more in common than you think. And they want you to hate them, and they want this strife, and they want this division, and they want war, because it's more distractions from fixing the problems. And people need to see through it. I plead with people, like, the election is next week. I love everyone. Like, I come from my message is from love, man. Like, I had a spiritual reformation over the past couple of years after I got sober. And I mean, as someone that's dealt with addiction and has talked about their problems in AA, and it's a little bit easier, but like, people aren't vulnerable anymore. Everyone has a hard exterior shell. You can see that by how they present themselves in their Instagram stories and their Instagram posts, and what they post on Facebook is like, everyone wants to give the illusion that they have all of their shit together. But look, man, we're all fucked together. Okay. Like, that's the simple matter of it, is that unless we see through this like obvious divide and conquer, there's no way we're going to be able to actually fix our problems. There's no way we're going to be able to come back to the table and address police accountability. There's not going to be any way to have a conversation if you just silence the opposition's point of view. And if that's the way that we go, then I don't know, like, the country isn't going to be the same. It's going to turn into something different. And I mean, I think that was inevitable anyway, just because as we march into the singularity point with AI, and technology continues to increase exponentially, that we're going to have a lot of issues that we never have come across before.
So something I heard somewhere, it was a point that it was a very interesting point that I thought. So he said that what he believes is like, I think the technological revolution like far came in preceded the spiritual revolution. So I mean, technology moved a lot faster than the spirituality could have, because so now we're living in, or like you were meant talking about earlier, bro. So we're living in a time where we have so much like social media. So I mean, it's crazy to think that like 20, 30 years ago, people didn't have internet, right? And now we're like,
Not even that. I mean,
that's
the kids these
crazy,
days
bro.
will never know the pain of having to wait 45 minutes for a song on
Oh my
Napster.
God, yeah. Or just if you like, you can't, if you're bored, you can just watch, like the kids here now are growing up watching Pepper Pig, right? So I mean, so now people are going up on, like, by the time they're in fifth, sixth grade, they have an Instagram account. They're like, hey, yo, they're cute. They
Everyone's
make,
got a brand. Like, look, everyone is a brand, right?
right,
Everyone
right,
has
right.
something to sell you, and
But I
that's
think
what
I
we
so,
become. And
but
because, like, I'll give you, for instance, I am in the dead middle of millennial age, and so I grew up with a foot in analog and a foot in digital. I grew up where the you had to listen to songs 12 at a time and they'd skip when you went on a walk. Like, it was inconvenient. And then it rapidly it came up with our generation. So like the iPhone I think came out in 2007, and
yeah,
I didn't have a cell phone until I was 17. Like, my parents were like, you don't need anything
same.
until you drive. And that was the way that it was. But now like we completely embraced Samsung and Apple, and we were just like, yes, give us these devices that we're going to become
Right, the
addicted.
instant gratification, bro. It's just complete dopamine. We need dopamine. Those dopamine hits like on a
And they know it.
constant
Like,
level.
they know it. The people that work for those companies are psychologists. Like, they like, this is human behavior
Right,
101.
right, right.
I think, and like, people are waking up to it. Like, I honestly, like, so the people that want to are, and they're like, for instance, at the beginning of coronavirus, I had all my fear apps, like the news and Instagram, Reddit, everything like that. Like that, I put them all in one folder, and I would look at everything once a day. And then eventually I just deleted all of it because none of it is important to my life anymore. But, I think that if people just walked away from their phones for a little while and kind of went back to organic route, like, find a hobby. I started growing uh fruits and vegetables in my backyard just to keep me, like, my mind like occupied. So it's like, ever since I quit drinking, you find different things to keep doing to occupy your mind. I mean, it's just part of sobriety for any addict. So like, for me, I was like, all right, I got to get a hobby, because I'm going to drive myself nuts if I just read about this shit all day, every day. And so then I deleted Instagram and I started gardening. I started researching. And now I got great okra, asparagus. Like, I'd love to get to a point where I can just even convert half my yard into a full-on garden and just be self-sustaining. Because, like, look, at the end of the day, that brings me back to this point about, we don't have any control anymore. Like, if they wanted to fuck shit up for us, it'd be really easy.
No,
Okay,
I
like,
mean,
there's
even the psychology
if
that
they
you were,
if they took the power down for a day or two, or they took the webs down for a week, like, people would panic.
you actually have to talk to people.
You aren't shit without the government, people. Like, you unless you are out in the middle of the country with your own food sources and your own water and your Alex Jones, pretty much, when the shit hits the fan, if there is some sort of like thing, you're fucked. Like, you're going to be beholden to whatever they say, because you're not going to have power. You're not going to have the internet. You're not going to have the ability to communicate. And so they know that, and that's fine. That's part of the deal. That's the agreement you sign up for to live here. What I'm trying to tell people is, see through it and carve out a little piece for yourself in this life. Try and become financially free. I mean, for me, that was the biggest thing I always wanted to do. And I think that like, my part of my story that'll resonate is, like, I never quit on myself, man. I was like the person who was like, I'm going to start my own business. I am not going to work for some asshole my whole life and kiss a bunch of ass in corporate and work my way up a ladder. I mean, I would have been an HR nightmare. I would have replied all to HR emails with like sarcastic bullshit. It would have been a total disaster. So for me, this opportunity, this life that is fallen in my lap, right, where I've dealt with so much stuff, you know, like chronic pain, a divorce, addiction, like all of that stuff is just lessons. And so my message for anyone who may be listening to this and they don't think anyone's on their side, like, you've got someone on your side. You need to just reach out to someone in your life that you care about, and you need to talk to them like about your feelings, because if you don't have someone to talk to about it, like, you're gonna drive yourself mad. I mean, luckily for me, I had a girl in my life that she saved me. I was fortunate enough to have a girl that loved me so much that she wouldn't let me die. I mean, there were times over 2 years ago, where I was lining up cocaine line after cocaine line just in my closet, drinking 12 packs a night, hoping that I would just die. And so, as someone that's been in that position, a lot of people haven't been to the bottom like that. But it gives you perspective when you wake up and you didn't die, and you keep waking up and you keep waking up and you keep hating yourself. And maybe somebody is out there that's struggling with a habit that they can't kick, but just know that it starts with acknowledging it. And that and if you're dealing with something, please reach out to me, and I'd love to talk to you about it, because it's just, my story needs to be shared, because it's real. I mean, I am a professional that had clients that were depending on me, that I failed, and I took responsibility for that eventually, and I paid for it. But obviously, when you have pain in your life, and then you exponentialify it with all this politics and divisiveness, it just makes people's mental health completely go into the shitter. And I'm telling you that you don't have to feel that way. You can feel empowered to be different and buck the system. I mean, I wake up every day like inspired to go out and be successful now. And like, I like to hustle, man. I make money, and that is obviously a good thing, but it's not what drives me. I think that if people just got away from the illusion of money and what it does to people, it would make people a lot more understanding of, like the fact that we're all human beings. We all have emotions. We all want to be loved. We all want to be successful. But what I think is what's happening is that there's a lot of people in this world, and there's a lot of people that don't have the education or the talent, and then they see all the success and they absolutely detest it because they can't have it too. So you then create the internet troll and people that just want to watch their world burn. And I've seen a lot of that as the internet's progressed. And I think that is honestly, if we stick together and change the things we can, like in AA, the serenity prayers, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And I think that little parable is a great example that people can use in their lives.
That one, and the whole one day at a time thing, bro. Those
That's
two
it.
are, it's huge. The one day at a time thing, like that's literally, I mean, we were talking about this the other day, bro, is like, for example, like people get stressed about all the stuff that they have to do, but you have to like, it's an hourglass, right? So there could be all the sand in the world at the top of that hourglass, but there's only one piece of sand going through at a time. So you don't have to stress about all the days ahead of you. It's one day at a time, one thing at a time, one
grain of sand at a time, man. And like every day, like, so I to give people a frame of reference that would make it a little bit easier to understand. I mean, I grew up Christian, in a Christian background, but I've always, as well as politics, I research spirituality and religion. Like, it's just something that I'm interested in. And I basically, once I got to college, I unboxed my belief system from the traditional Abrahamic Christian religion. And so I kind of went through like an atheist agnostic phase throughout law school and 25, 26. And then after I got sober, I honestly, over the past even 6 months, like my spirituality has just kind of kicked up. And I think I've drawn a lot from astrology and just getting a lot more spiritual. Whereas I'm not putting myself in a box to where I believe this and that. I'm evolving. I think that if we just admit that we don't know shit at the end of the day, and like we all think we do, or at least we were taught, like when you're young, for instance, like I grew up with a lot of friends that are Christian, and you're taught, this is how Jesus did things and this is what we believe. And then you go up into the world and it's not exactly copacetic with like some friends that you might meet that happen to be gay or whatever. And so like you've got those clashing ideals. And so like what I did my entire life is I made it a point to make friends with people who did not agree with me. And I knew I knew that by doing that, if I could gain their respect so that I could ask them at least legitimate questions. Like I have a multitude of text groups that I'm in. All of varying different political ideologies. So every day I get the Biden memes and the Trump memes from the different text groups. They probably don't know that, but I mean, that's about that I do that. But I've got friends that believe, the deepest, darkest conspiracy theories all the way to, very traditionalist, like Baptist friends. And there's nothing wrong with what you want to believe. The beauty of America is you can believe that fucking cat is God and you're allowed to worship.
Difference is beautiful. Difference should
exactly
be
yeah. And I mean, I think like look at the Church of Satan. Pull up
no, I know what you're
pull
going
up their
with it, bro.
principles, man. Yeah,
I've even looked into it. Like, dude, how could
it's a government accountability organization. That's like it's hilarious. It was exemplified in Silicon Valley.
Based on the Paradise Lost shit, right? The being yeah, bro. Like Satanists, like people who are like, I believe in Satanism or whatever. Like, you have to always acknowledge the counterexample. You know what I'm saying? Like, just for a second, put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like, and then what do they believe? Like, what I'm saying? Like, for example, like if you're a Trump supporter, it's like, oh, if we vote Biden, we're fucking socialist and communism, and we just want to destroy the all corporations, and China is going to invade us. And if you're a Biden supporter, it's like, why would you vote for a bigot, like a fascist, like he's a racist.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just labels. It's labels. I mean,
right,
that's what we do. We label each other, and then we were like, cancel them once they get a label, and we can't do that to each other anymore. Like you can't have reasonable discourse.
Right, but when you look into Satanism, their whole thing is it's anti-repression, right? It's instead of it's don't repress your desires. Your desires are your greatest source of energy. That's how you become prolific, right? And that's how you become a creative, is like chasing your desires. So like Christians,
yeah, like their principles are more or less to make sure that they have a place at the table like every other church. So they hold the government accountable to the separation of church and state doctrine. And I love that about them and that organization, just because it's really just a troll on the government to be like, no, if we want to worship Satan, you have to let us, even though we don't really worship Satan. They're more about just being good people and holding people accountable. Like when you look up their principles, that's what I saw anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it was more about like how it was just a response to the like the old Christian tradition of like, dude, don't, you don't get to fucking want anything. You don't get to like express yourself, like where everyone was like really pushing conformity. They were like anti-conformist. They were like,
yeah, like that's what we need more of that, man, because like this conformity push is dangerous.
But the first step is like from your, even recognizing your own biases. Like, for example, whenever people hearing this, they're like, are these guys really telling us to be Satanists? Like, is that what's going on right now? Like,
no, we're just pointing out that like, there are people that have different opinions than you, and they are good people.
We're trying to use the extreme, like even Satanism.
For sure, there
are things that you can understand, that you can find things that you have in common with even people who worship Satan, right? Even the people.
For sure, like that's what I love. Like, so I knew that one of my personality traits is just I will relate to you. I will fucking meet you, and you will think that you hate me, and then I will make sure that we find something to talk about. Like that's that's key to what I do. I have to be able to converse on a normal level like, that's just as far as like selling my case for my client, you have to make it relatable and you have to use visual aids. I mean, the people's attention spans are so small. I just use memes. I mean, it's like, if
he's
you
in
don't,
court, like, Your Honor,
I'm in
this is
court and I
why.
load up the memes on a
He's like,
keynote
Your Honor,
presentation,
he just
man.
brings like just a bunch of poster boards full of memes.
That's what I do.
Just
Yeah.
pulls them out one by one.
Hey, speaking of poster boards, next episode we're going to be doing a little Halloween special, and I think
That's awesome, bro.
it's going to be a little treat for everybody. So we're going to be channeling our inner PBS. Here's a little teaser. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's when you look at the country's problems, they are diverse, they are complicated, but they are fixable. They are fixable. It's just getting the right people to go after the people with all the money. That's it. And until that person comes around, it's just going to be the machine, and you can go red or blue, but in your day-to-day life, it's probably not going to affect that much. You know, and
Right.
so like, it's just been,
I think that's huge too, is to recognize that we don't live in a dictatorship, bro. Like, it's not like if you vote Trump, everything is just gonna vote upside down. Neither is Biden. Like you were.
But that's what
talking
they
about
have you believe. Like,
Exactly.
I think that is the message. Like, if he's got 4 more years, you're gonna all be quarantined. You're gonna be rounded up in quarantine camps and forcibly vaccinated. Like, it doesn't matter who wins. It's all this fear porn. And like, at the end of the day, that's not gonna happen. I mean, come on. We got the Second Amendment. There's not going to be a mandatory vaccine. If anything, they're gonna try and involuntarily make you get it in order to like get your license or go into restaurants. And people are going to push back on that stuff. Like, there's no way that people are just going to take it. There's
America
no way.
is one of the best countries in the world at the checks and balances part of it too, bro. Like, one person doesn't have, like, our founding fathers were really good at setting it up so that like you were saying, at the national level, that there's not much, like, you voting for the president isn't like Biden or Trump can't make crazy changes.
Look, they wanted the people to have the illusion of power, so they gave them
Right.
a democratic republic, which is not a true democracy. It just means that you elect a puppet to serve on your behalf.
Right, and like, for example, even countries like the UK, like, it's a lot easier for them to propagate change, because if all you need is the prime minister and the party in charge can pretty much just push out as many things as they want, right? But
right, whereas here you've got a lot of hiccups at 3 different levels, right?
Right, you need to get through the congressional, you need to get through the House, you need to get through the Senate, you need to get, then the president's got to approve it, and then if all three pass, the Supreme Court could still be like, no, fuck that. Like,
hey man, I've watched the YouTube video on how to make a bill too. We need to include that.
But enough people haven't, apparently, bro.
I know, but like, that's the thing, is that they see it's a sham. I mean, the fact that like they shoved a Supreme Court justice through in like 3 weeks before an election. I mean, come on. It's just, and it's a court, and everyone that's Trump is like, yeah, we're gonna overturn abortion, and everyone that's on the other side is like, oh my god, it's gonna be back alley abortions.
Yeah,
and
just all
what's
over.
really the case is no, they're just gonna keep making money on you. And that's because these conservative justices are corporate sponsored candidates. So it sucks. I see now just an unbridled Citizens United jerk off fest going forward for these corporations. They're unchecked. They're completely unregulated at this point, and they're going to do whatever they want. So how do you combat it? You don't, man. Stop caring about things you can't control. Like, what I figured out is that I can't change the world. Like, even what I say now, people are going to they'll either cast it off, or they'll maybe find some truth in it. Either way, I don't care. I know what I believe to be true. I know what I've seen and what I've studied. I don't have an agenda for any cause other than to seek the truth and to make this country a better place. That's it. Like, if that's not your motivation to fix this country, then you shouldn't have any voice in it, because once you start getting all of these different interests and these old money families involved on these massive decisions about the way that our country runs and the way that we feed it, the way that we secure it, the way that we educate it. I mean, all of those things are no longer in the hands of the people. They're in the hands of the people who get these people into office. And largely, those are the people with the money. And so, and largely, those are corporations. And so, like, until the people wake up and kind of see that, they might have, there's a small sect with Bernie, but even Bernie is a shill for the Democratic Party. And you could tell that because he blindly cast his support for Clinton and then Biden, which made me, it made me lose he lost all credibility and trying to say that he was different.
But I mean, I think his, just to play devil's advocate, his thing was like anyone but Trump, right? But it's crazy that Bernie was just because they couldn't control Bernie, bro. Like they made sure that he couldn't get.
Oh, well, you could see that the Republicans and the Democrats organized to make sure that he wasn't going to be the candidate.
Exactly, because he was the one that he was the only one that they couldn't really control, right?
Right. No, I mean, like, but I also think that, like, he's been in office for a long time. Everyone thinks he's this awesome dude, but look, he's got connections too. I mean, come on, he's got a comfortable life. He's not struggling to pay rent. Kidding me? And so everyone that blindly is like, we need Bernie. I mean, no, you need a new Bernie. You need a JFK, man. You need someone from there. You need fresh blood. You need a millennial who's going to come in there. And
I love
it's not going to be me for sure.
I love what you said earlier.
Fuck that, man. I have zero. I grew up and I was like, I want to be in politics. I would love to run for office. There is nothing I would rather do less than hold political office right now. I would rather just keel over and die than be a politician in this day and age. Because why would you want to sign up for that? Why would you put your family through that? Unless you're just a sycophant for power. And that's what the large majority of these people in charge are. And so until you all see that, people, that all of these people who were paid lots of money to tell you all these things and repeat these talking points, trust the science and trust the experts, and it's all bullshit. Like they are controlling your mind because they control the narrative and they control the medium in which you observe it. So until you get that through your head, the people won't change, because there's this false illusion of divisiveness. And as long as people keep buying into it, then there's no way that reasonable people can come to the table and fix these childish problems. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And that's sad because it makes you a little depressed. It makes you wonder if things are ever actually going to change for the better. Like, will humanity actually wake up and start feeding its poor in the richest country in America? Will we figure out a way to provide universal basic housing so that people can have a roof over their heads, and stop bitching about all the homeless people they see on their way to work? Like, those are human beings. Like, every single time you see someone, the egg allegory is a great one, wherein it's the theory that you live every life that anyone has ever lived, and every time period. And so when I heard that story, we should throw that up for the listeners, but or a YouTube link for it. But basically, it's just the mindset that you need to, if you zoom out of your own life and you try
we can explain it right now, dude. It's super simple. Like, there was I showed him, there was a Logic made it was on one of his albums,
the rapper, so that's how you found out about it, right?
That's how I heard about it first time. But he was like, it was
it's so beautiful that like an artist was able to put that in his songs.
So a dude died, and then he went to heaven, and it was like he was in a waiting room and he's talking to God, and he was like, wait, this is a waiting room before you go into your next. And he's like, what? I get reincarnated? So, the Buddhists anyway. So he was like, yeah, but, we've had this conversation before, next time. But last time you were a Chinese girl from the 15th century. We're speaking in Chinese. But essentially, you've lived every life of every single person that has ever existed in every time period on every planet that the humanity has ever lived on. You know what I'm saying? Like every gender, every sexuality. So you've experienced exactly, bro. Like it's mind blowing. Like you've
It's pretty
experienced.
terrifying. I mean, like, and then if that's the case, then there isn't any bad in this world. You're just learning different lessons. Like, so even if you're the worst kind of human being and you're like a rapist, whether you're the rapist or the person being raped, the lesson is going to be different. You know, like on a holistic, like spiritual level, that's tough to understand. But if we zoom out and on a spiritual level and just say, why don't we all treat each other like, there's a great Rick and Morty episode and he's like, snakes, could you imagine a snake being racist because of another color snake? And like it's just it's
crazy. Yeah, I mean, and then like
we are all the same, man.
allegory
We're all
even
the same
further, bro.
DNA.
Yeah,
Like we
anytime
need to
you're
just stop labeling
you're
each
arguing
other.
with anyone else, or like hurting anyone else, you're literally hurting yourself.
You're hurting yourself.
Life.
Like think about how you've treated people. Think about the worst thing you've ever done to somebody. Think about the worst thing you've ever said to somebody. And then think about how that made them feel, or the shame and embarrassment. Man, I did some terrible stuff when I was younger. I've thrown like a Whataburger taquito in a guy's face in the drive-thru because I thought it was funny. And I was 18 and I was an asshole. I was, and it was a fraternity prank and it was like stupid, but that sort of incident resonates with me. I embarrassed somebody at some point in my life and I humiliated them. And I have made it a point to learn from that experience. Because like, or any experience where you treat someone with disrespect is just, it doesn't gel for advancing yourself. Like it. And so what I've tried to do, and even in a lawyer's situation, man, there's a lot of people that just think I'm an asshole because I am. I mean, that's the truth. Like I can be an asshole, but what I've learned is that it's a lot easier to get something when you're offering carrots instead of sticks. And I think that, you know, when you come with an olive branch instead of just an arrow, you're going to have a lot more success at getting people to resonate with your message and actually agree with you on a principle level that, yes, there is a problem. Here's what my side believes would fix it. And then let's hear what your side believes would fix it. And let's come to the table and figure out a way to compromise. I mean, like, let's take police unions, for instance. They hold all the power as far as why we have all this outrage in the criminal justice system. They're very well funded, and they're like a labor union but they're run by conservative groups, which is hilarious to me because it's the same exact tactics that are used by the left, used by the right, and just people, it's got a different spin on it. But at the end of the day, they don't want to necessarily implement changes that would be unfavorable to the status quo. And until we actually force them to, or at least have people that recognize this and can come in with fresh ideas and that can just stop putting an R or a D next to their name. I mean, I truly hope that this year wakes people up to like maybe the fact that we need a new third party. Like we need something. We need another option other than these two assholes that they've given us for this election, man. It's just, we need something better. We need something better.
It's so funny. Like Washington, his only rules were like, hey, don't ever, make political parties, and don't ever, and then
don't let corporate money into politics.
Yeah,
and then we just let it.
As soon as his presidency was finished, we were like, yeah, fuck you. See,
the thing is that with Trump, I the vitriol and the hatred for him was different than anybody I'd ever seen, which makes me think that he's either an outsider legitimately, or it's like an orchestrated effort to bring about the fall of America. Whichever way it is, I think that people are going to gamble on Trump this year again. I see too much discongruency with the Democratic message. Like they cannot get like what is it to be a member of the Democratic Party? Like tell me.
I don't know, bro. I feel the same. No,
Is it someone that's like AOC or is it someone
message,
that's like more moderate? I don't know what to. I don't know what they don't have a congruent message. Like there is no.
This year, their entire
it's
message
get Trump out. Trump sucks.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. That was their.
So that's worrisome to me. Like that should be worrisome to the public. That's your only plan. I mean, I wanted to hear Joe Biden talk to me about how he was going to help me forgive student loans, or how he was going to help actually change the planet for the better. And what I heard him is just try to sell out to the rest of the oil industry that's begging to stay, relevant. But when the Rockefellers pull their money out, it's time to get in on whatever's next. And like, so I see oil and gas, the smart players are just going to adapt and become renewables because that's the way we're going. I mean, inevitably, and unfortunately, the Republican Party sold out to oil interests. I mean, that's why we're in these perpetual wars where Schlumberger and Halliburton are somehow involved. And, it's like we've got this perpetual system where a few people are making a lot of money and not enough people are making enough money. And it's untenable. And I think that once the people figure out and find a candidate who's just going to fight for them, like the people, and he doesn't have an agenda. He just wants to make the country a better place, make it fair, and at least like rein in the corporate profits a little bit. Until you get someone that's willing to go after them, man, I don't think anything's ever going to change. I mean, I at this point, it's too late. It's too late, and I don't know. It may not be too late. Honestly, we probably got like another election cycle before we're just fully into they're either going to hit it. Like if Trump wins again, I'm terrified, man. I'm terrified that COVID-21 is coming and it's just going to be more bullshit. And I'm almost like hoping that he doesn't win just so that we kind of have a sense of normalcy. But then again, it's not going to be actually normal. There's going to be a lot of behind the scenes shit going on in the Biden's presidency or a Kamala Harris presidency. Biden's never going to see the Oval Office. So, I mean, if you've got those two options, you're pretty much like, well, fuck. And this is the thing I want to tell people again. It doesn't really matter that much, guys. Okay. Like it's a way to keep you divided, but you need to be more focused on what your district attorney is doing.
Right. But that's not sexy. You know what I'm saying?
No,
it's not. It's not sexy, but like no one wants to people the like where we could tell you all day that you need to be paying attention at your local level and what the right thing to do is, but it's not the truth isn't sexy, bro. The truth is like
it's not, man. It's not sexy. It's not a soundbite. It's not vitriol. It doesn't sound good. It's tough, and it's going to require people to be vulnerable with each other. And like in a day and age where you can get canceled like that, most people aren't going to take that risk. I can take that risk. I work for myself. I don't have an HR department, so I can say what I want, and it's a luxury that most people can't, they don't have that ability. So if you're listening to this and you're like, man, I like what this guy is saying, or this guy's a fucking moron, it doesn't matter. What's the point of it is that I get to say it. And so you don't have to listen to it, but in this country, I have the right to say these things. And, it appears to me that we want to be able to limit what we're allowed to say, or a lot of the people want to be able to do that. And it sucks, man, because I go on Reddit, and if you don't have a pro Biden opinion, your comment will just get removed now. Like it's pure censorship. And so I any kind of conservative opinion. So what they've done is made Trump representative of conservatives, but Trump is not a conservative. He is not a traditional Republican. Like he is his own man. I honestly think he's not even that rich. Like he's a billionaire, but he's not like, he doesn't have a ton of money in comparison to the real power players. And so that what made me think like, all right, the guy's rich, but and what he's done is he cut off all the lobbyists, but instead of the traditional like think tanks coming into the Oval and being like, oh, President Bush or President Obama, this is how we need to do the next thing, Trump will be like, no, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. And so what you've seen is like, and the mistake he made is that he put his own family around him. And so that now they are the lobbyists, and there's people that are, there's people that are paying people millions of dollars just to drop a line to the president, hoping that he'll change his mind on something. So when you've got a wild card, that's what honestly I think that the media like couldn't stand, is the guy is not on a script. And so it's the first time in my adult life that we had a president that didn't have a script. And I think in my whole life, and probably I don't even know how far back it goes, but like it just made sense to me that if they tried so hard all 4 years to get him out, like what is he doing that's so dangerous? Because it's the same people that are like, they're pushing on this like Marxist agenda and or what appears to be, and that to me was a very concerning thing. Like I've got a lot of liberal friends that repeat the talking points, and they are completely just enamored with hating Trump. Like I think honestly, it is a new addiction. Like psychologists will it's not Trump derangement syndrome, but it's an addiction to seeing what he does. I mean, the guy is a reality TV star, and he knows that. He uses it very well. He uses that power very well, because when you notice how he answers questions, he never gives he will give clear answers, unlike a politician sometimes, but then other times, he'll wish Josiane Maxwell well. And you're like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, this is what? So he does things that are completely just there. It reminds me of just like some college kid on Adderall. Like you never know what the fuck you're going to get. And so it's dangerous in that it's not controllable. And so like you said in the last episode, man, he has woken people up to the manipulation that we've had by our media. And that like, if you talk to someone, for instance, like I have a friend in Russia, he's from Moscow, and he's like, when we're in Russia, we know that they're lying to us. And so we read the newspapers just expecting to be lied to. And it's pretty funny when he told me that, because I was like, what do you mean? Like your parents? Like, he's like, dude, everyone knows they lie to you. And so we live in this, and so then I'm like, fuck, is that the case here? I've been reading the newspaper my whole life. And for the most part, it was fair and balanced. For as far as print journalism,
there was objective
there
journalism.
was objective, like, oh no, we're gonna get both sides. But now it's just become
no objective journalism,
anonymous
bro.
sources and trust the experts. And so that's not good enough for me. That does not hold any weight. When someone just says to trust someone else, like these Q-tards, like they're like, trust the plan. That's when you know it's a fucking psyop. Like anyone that believes in that shit needs to stop. And
dude, honestly, I think one of the things that you said today that resonated with me the most is the term limits on the federal government, like senators and congressmen. I think that would really be, because, for example, even the whole anti-Trump movement of the last 4 years, like the senators and the liberal Congress people, they have to be doing that because that's what their constituents want to hear, right? So their only job is to continue to try to get reelected. If we could set that a term limit, at least for that last term, they could actually do the right thing for once. You know what I'm saying? Instead of trying
or
to
at least
make
them wear like corporate sponsor logos on their blazers, like NASCAR.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Like the team, like when teams wear shit on their fucking.
Yeah, I mean, just hold your political
hilarious.
leaders accountable. Like, there's for me, there's like 9 things that this country could do that would just immediately help unfuck us. Like, but they'll never happen because at every single one, there's a corporate interest that's going to be denied money. Like you could do term limits at the federal level. You put term limits on the leadership positions in the committees in Congress. You cease corporate sponsorship of politics. You eliminate Citizens United. I think that truly has fucked us more than anything. You got to regulate the fuck out of our bloated military industrial complex. And like, we don't need to be building 35 like bombers every year anymore. Like, I don't understand why that is a priority, but it keeps getting funded by both sides. And
Especially since we have enough nukes to blow up the entire world like
10
18
times
times.
over. I mean,
Yeah.
or at least they say we do. I don't know. So it's like we've got to reform and gut how we like conduct intelligence operations in this country too, because they have way too much power.
Bro,
And so
isn't that so crazy that we can already blow up the entire world? Like, so why are we still building nukes? Like, how many times are you trying to blow up the world? You know what I'm saying? Like, why are we still fucking making those, bro? Like,
dude, it's like I said, it's turtles
because
all the way down. When you
fear
have
sells,
access to
right?
when you have access to the information and like you don't, and it's just you either know or you don't. But like I said, going back on that, the three things that are bankrupting this country the most, four things are the military industrial complex, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And the trade-off for the spending on the military is that the Republicans agree to keep funding those three things that keep bankrupting us. So if you don't see that, like those entitlement programs, like and the other thing, like the trade-off should be, for me at least, is to raise the poverty level, because we've got so many people that make like the way, like what happened in America is like everything in the 80s and 90s, like you could, back then you could afford to buy a house, like you could afford to go to school, you could afford to pay for everything. And now like the wages have remained stagnant for 40 years, but yet corporate boards keep paying these guys millions of dollars in bonuses every year. No one cares. But that notwithstanding, I mean, you've got to take accountability. I mean, like in the spending, like we've gotten so out of control in our debt that it's just fugazi. Like we have a complete, that's another thing, is if you want to fix the country, and this is like a dangerous statement maybe, but like you've got to look at the Fed and the Federal Reserve and like our dependence on the World Bank. And because like I think it was someone in the Rothschild family. He's like, I care not. Give me control of a nation's banks, and I care not who makes its laws. And that quote really resonated with me, because if you have the ability to just make numbers out of nothing, then maybe that's the people that have the real power. If you just took a little bit of the greed back, I mean, then you could fund universal basic
Dude,
housing,
honestly,
universal basic income,
there was
private public healthcare system.
100%. So like with the nation's banks thing that you were talking about, there was a documentary that I watched a couple of weeks ago about the three classes of billionaires, right? So we have the lower class billionaires they're worth $1 billion, but like they're
just in the Trace Combos Club.
Yeah, they're all their shit's like tied up in shit, so it's not like they're actually liquid. Like they're not liquid enough to like they're.
Oh, but here's like the common man doesn't understand how the rich people work. I mean,
exactly.
like they don't make money like you. And so what Biden's tax plan is to tax the highest wage earners instead of like, so that's going to disincentivize anybody to actually have a real job. So what you do is you skirt the system. You make a bunch of LLCs. You hide your money in art,
wages,
real estate, horses, casinos. Like that is where the rich people make their money. And like it's not their fault. They figured it out. I read a book by Trump when I was a kid. It was like, I think it was by him and Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a decent book about financial strategy growing up.
Yeah, I read it recently.
So
I read it again recently.
It's a good one, man. But Trump and him wrote a book together called Why We Want You to Be Rich. Yeah. And it was funny because this is apprentice Trump writing this. And when I read it, it was basically the argument that the more capital that you create, the more wealth there is for everybody. That, from a capitalistic standpoint, absolutely makes sense. But what people don't realize that in a capitalistic system, there are worker bees and there are rainmakers, and there are going to be way more of the former than the latter. And so you're going to have people that facilitate the system in order for the entire thing to work. But the problem is that we've gotten so greedy and so unchecked. I mean, I honestly believe that we could fix the problem just by making people have less. I mean, if you just capped like your personal growth potential at $100 million, and then every dollar you earned after that, you had to provide for education or infrastructure. Like who needs more than $100 million, man? Because like, I'm telling you, I know a lot of rich people. I'm friends with them. They have their own set of problems, and it becomes like whose jet is better and like who's got the nicer house where, and it's semantics. And like then you've got a whole generation of those kids that are trust fund kids now, that they never worked for anything and now they're bored, and they like they want a virtue signal now because they haven't ever had to struggle. So it's easy to pick a side when you have all the money. We're not all in this together. We're not all in this together. Are you kidding me? Like there's no way. So I mean, until people realize that, man, I don't know. Like it's truly depressing, but at the same time, I'm uplifted because I know in my heart of hearts that despite all of this, I am gonna wake up every day in the best, and if not the best, the least shittiest country in the world, and I'm going to earn it. And I'm not going to expect a handout. I am going to get up and I am going to go out there and figure out a way to provide. And that should be the American spirit. I think we've lost sight of that. You know, we need more people that have an entrepreneurial spirit, or maybe we've gone too far and like everyone thinks they're an entrepreneur now, and like their brand and what they have to say is important, you know. And it's like that's hilariously ironic for me saying that, but it's true. I mean
so I think that like the easiest way to put it is, bro, like it's not the purpose of life is like whenever people say like your point of life is to be happy, like that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. You know what I'm saying? Like the point of life is not to be happy. The point of life is to be useful. You see what I'm saying? The point of life is to be like not, I mean, when you're, it's like the whole chasing a butterfly thing, right? You chase a butterfly, you'll never catch it. But if you're focused on something else, the butterfly comes and sits on your shoulder type of thing. So like that's where happiness, when you focus on being of service, right? When you focus on being of as useful as possible, that's the only time where capitalism really works. That's the only time where, and that's where I like capitalism to a point of like you're trying to be as useful as possible. Okay, like it makes sense, right? But when you go back to the who has the bigger jet and who can do all that shit, like they're I mean neither. So I don't, a purely capitalistic society is not going to work, and neither is communism, as is evidenced over and over again. So it just comes down to
that's why I think that a capped capitalism system could work.
Right, I do think the 100 million cap is
right. Like make it a trade off. Like why do we need so much?
It's interesting, but at the same time, like we were talking about earlier, bro. Like in terms of the rich don't pay themselves in terms of wages, in terms of and
the other problem is that the large majority of people that are lower income that vote Republican think they're all going to be rich one day. So right. You've got a bunch of disillusioned individuals who are like, we need those tax cuts because I'm going to be them one day, you know. And so exactly. It's never going to be you, man. Like until you figure out how to game the system and get out of working for someone for money, you're never gonna escape the rat race ever.
Awesome, bro.
Because, I mean, that's it. Like, this hasn't been like a law podcast, but I think that it's real. It's a real conversation. Like,
that's why I mean,
it's different. I think we presented it like from a pretty neutral standpoint. Like, I don't take a side. You know, I just think that it's fascinating to observe it and human nature. And like I said, everybody I meet is a potential juror. So I have to know the political atmosphere because it's topical to like for instance, if it wasn't coronavirus and we had trial, I always have like election memes that I use because they're funny and they make fun of both sides. Like that's stuff you've got to do, and you've got to be aware of how people feel, because like I ask people their political affiliations so that I have a pretty understanding of that. You think that like because someone's a Trump voter now they are a certain way, but I've met a lot of Black and Indian and Asian and Vietnamese and every race. I've met someone that's supported him. So it's like it's not just these old white people supporting him as much as they want to like have people believe that. No, I mean, it's just there are people out there that actually like the fact that he's a big asshole to everyone, and I think that that's why they vote for him.
I mean, especially when the alternative is like like your Hillary Clintons and your Joe Bidens, like they're just so
It's
far
just
removed.
establishment people. I think people
Right.
would rather roll the dice, man. I think that they
So
did it
far
in
removed
16
from
and
the
they're gonna
common
do it
man.
again. And if they don't, then they don't. But like,
You can
I
feel
agree.
the incongruence, bro. Like you can feel it. You can feel that, like
Yeah, like there's
they're
a
just
entire
saying
like
talking
the
points.
energy is not like there's like we are broken, and like people I think are gonna get tired of it, and they're gonna realize that this needs to happen. It's just like this message is not appropriate for now, because like everyone wants to be mad at each other, and everyone wants to be like, no, I can't wait for my guy to win. I can't wait for my guy to win. And like I was talking to my therapist yesterday, and she was like, I talked to a friend, and she said that don't bother talking to me if your guy wins, because we're not going to have anything to talk about anymore.
That's
And
crazy,
like
bro.
that
Funny though.
that struck me as like, wow, this is someone that you knew your whole life and were friends with every previous president, but now we've got this one guy in office that has just made such a dichotomy out of everybody, and like you're either with us or against us. And I think that we need to stop being so black and white. Like it's got to stop. We have to treat each other with respect if we're going to make any sort of real change. That's it. Love each other and treat each other with respect. That's something that I did not do for a large part of my life, and I have learned that the more that you realize that it isn't about you. I mean, I had a full ego death, and I truly realized how unimportant my life was in the grand scheme of the universe. And I always thought it was the opposite growing up, and that it revolved around me. And so like learning that lesson in the middle, in my 30s, it really opened my eyes to how I had treated people, how I had acted, were negative. Like it has a negative effect on people. So how you present yourself to the world, people are going to like, that's important. Like post something positive, be vulnerable on Instagram, like do something different, because you've got to do something to buck the status quo. I mean, if we just keep pretending like our lives are perfect and everything's hunky-dory, then we're never actually going to change and evolve and keep getting better. And and unfortunately, I think a lot of people see the answer to the problems as AI and just letting the quantum computing figure it out, and so, but honestly, I think the real truth lies in the organic ability to communicate with a fellow human being. And we've lost sight of that.
Yeah, yeah, bro. I think that's like a perfect place to wrap up this podcast. Ended off on a great note.
We will get you off, literally.
Yeah.
If you did not get off
From
to
that,
listening to someone call for unity, I don't know what to tell you.
we can't help you, bro. Yeah, exactly. Wrong podcast for you.
Hey, and look, next episode, it's going to be a special treat. We're going to draw a happy little jail cell, and it's going to be a fun time, man. So hopefully we're going to have our first guest on by episode 4. And I'm really excited for what we're going to be doing on this thing. This was just more of like a let's talk about the world. And,
for sure, we're still finding our bearings. You know what I'm saying?
And look, I've got to fix the the mans, the bros. I'm working on all of that. So it's something new for me, and but I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. I'm confident that this is going to be successful. I am confident that you will have episodes where you will laugh your ass off. You will have episodes where you cry, and you will have everything in between, because that's what I'm going to give you. My life is a interesting take on reality. So I think if maybe you see it through my eyes, maybe you'll start to get on the unity, love everybody train. So I don't know. It's just from someone that used to be a divisive guy that was just an asshole for being an asshole for asshole's sake, to treating people with respect and listening to them. It's going to be a wild ride, man. And I'm excited. I'm excited for y'all to listen to this, and I'm excited to bring y'all this content. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Texas Law Dog podcast, where we will get you off, literally and legally. Please tune in next week for another episode with insights about how the criminal justice system operates. And tune in. We got a couple of special guests that will be coming up pretty soon. and a lot of fun things happening for the podcast. So we appreciate your support. Please come back next week. Subscribe, like, share, and for the love of God, please don't text me your opinions on this. Thank you.